Yes, good evening. Emergency services in Germany are responding to a major incident in the city of Magdeburg, which is in northeastern Germany. It's about 100 miles from Berlin. You're looking there at very dramatic pictures now coming out of the city of Magdeburg as emergency services converge on that scene to deal with the injured. This vehicle careered into a Christmas market. Now we're hearing at this early stage of potentially up to 60, potentially even 80 people that have been injured. There is video that we have seen that shows the vehicle. It's just too graphic for us to show it to you, but we've looked at that material and it's very clear to us that that vehicle is driving at speed into this crowd who were gathered in the central area of Magdeburg for this Christmas market and continues on at speed with people flying, sadly, in all directions. And that would certainly be borne out by these reports that we're getting through now, 60 up to 80 potentially who have been injured. As I say, you're looking at the very latest images coming out of the city of Magdeburg, one of Germany's major cities, to the west of Berlin itself, up there in northeastern Germany, with those dozens of emergency service vehicles converging on the scene. Now, as in terms of any potential cause or motivation for what has unfolded here, we're not getting that from the authorities in Germany as yet. You wouldn't expect them to. We're very early on in what is an unfolding and very significant situation here at this Christmas market in Magdeburg. But, of course, attention will turn to the potential for this being a terrorist-related incident in this city. Germany has sadly become all too familiar with acts of terrorism in recent years. And in fact, just the last few months, two separate knife attacks which resulted in multiple casualties. Now, we don't have any information to say one way or the other what the motivation is, but it will be uppermost in the minds of those German investigators as they try to piece together exactly what happened in this city centre. As many people, families will have been out at this Christmas market, a huge and popular tradition in Germany at this time of year.
Question I have for you, how does this compare to what took place in 2016 with the Berlin truck attack? And plots like this have been foiled, quite recently, over the not-too-distant past. Just how regular an occurrence ought people attending Christmas markets in Europe expect this to be?
Well, sadly, Darren, all too familiar as far as Germany is concerned. You remember, of course, France was probably the epicentre for so many of these terrorist attacks over recent years. But it switched in a way. The focus is on Germany, and part of that has been linked to the policy of the previous Chancellor, Angela Merkel, when she allowed 1.2 million Syrian refugees into the country. And so many of the attacks that we've seen in recent months and years have been linked back to the conflict in Syria, the conflicts in the Middle East, and in particular some of those Syrian and other asylum seekers in Germany. If you remember, of course, back, you mentioned that Berlin Christmas market a terrorist attack that took place in 2016. I was out there in Berlin reporting on that at the time. That was a lorry that was hijacked by an asylum seeker who then ploughed into the Christmas market, killing 12 people and injuring 56 others. And that attack was linked to Germany's policy at the time in 2016 of supporting the coalition effort against Islamic State. And it has to be said, all of these years later, almost a decade on, Darren, we have still not got rid of Islamic State or indeed Al-Qaeda. Our head of domestic counter-terrorism, the domestic intelligence service MI5, Ken McCallum, spoke just a couple of months ago about the real concern that security services here in the UK and indeed elsewhere in Europe have about a resurgent ISIS and a resurgent Al-Qaeda as well. They've been gaining strength not just in the Middle East, but in other parts of the world where they've been displaced, of course, by a lot of what happened in Syria and Iraq. But they are gaining strength again. And just to note as well, it's worthy of note, is news that came out from CENTCOM, the Central Command Center in Washington, for the US military, confirming that they killed yesterday in a missile strike the ISIS leader in Syria. And of course, as I say, you know, that terrorist organization in Syria still there, still has the potential, if not to carry out direct attacks in the West, then certainly to influence those extremists all across Europe that might be willing to go out and commit the most unspeakable atrocities in the name of this terrorist group.
Mark, last question there on this. How worried ought we be here in the United Kingdom about this kind of attack?
Well, certainly aware and cautious about what you see, and just the authorities will tell you always just to be alert and not alarmed. But there is no doubt that the terror threat itself is increasing. It's still substantial, which is the median point for the terror threat level in the UK, but that could change any time, really, depending on the threat assessment that the security services get. And as I say, Ken McCallum, the Director General of MI5, saying just a couple of months ago how it is chief amongst the concerns now that MI5 have, and indeed counter-terrorism policing, is the way in which these terrorist groups that we thought we'd dealt with all those years ago are now regrouping. They're becoming resurgent again and are seeking to influence those here in European countries to carry out terrorist atrocities. We just have to add a caveat. We don't know at this stage the reason behind this terrible event that is taking place in the German city of Magdeburg, but uppermost, of course, in the thoughts of the investigators as they go forward will be the real serious potential for this being yet another terrorist attack in Germany.
Indeed, especially given, as you described there at the start, Mark, that horrendous video that, of course, we are choosing not to show. It's just horrific. It doesn't bear thinking about. It really doesn't. Mark White, thank you very much for giving us that update about Magdeburg in Germany.